Gustave III Airport, St. Barthélemy Island, French Overseas Community. A short runway runs down the slope and ends right at the beach. Airplanes take off over the heads of tourists. Everywhere there are signs prohibiting being at the end of the runway. The slope of the mountain makes it difficult to lower altitude from afar. Pilots have to sharply descend along the slope to get close to the runway, which is only 640 meters long. And if the pilots do not have time to touch the runway before its middle, then it is likely that there will not be enough room to stop the plane. Another extreme airport, Congonhas, Brazil. Located a few kilometers from downtown São Paulo, the airport is a gift for passengers, but not for pilots who have to maneuver between high-rise buildings. There are also problems with the surface of the runway, which is often slippery due to rain and poor drainage. It can be safely called the airport with the most slippery surface. So, in 2007, for this reason, a plane crashed during landing. As a result of the crash, 187 passengers died. A significant part of the car accidents that have occurred at the airport over the past 70 years have happened at night. In conditions of poor visibility, not all experienced pilots can successfully land on a slippery runway. The last major accident at the airport occurred in July 2007, when the crew of a TAM Airlines Airbus lost control of the aircraft, which veered off the runway and crashed into a warehouse. All 187 passengers of the Airbus, including the attendants, were killed, and the accident also claimed the lives of 12 airport employees who were in the warehouse building. Quito Mariscal Sucre, Ecuador. Located in the center of the densely populated capital of Ecuador. Pilots have to land the plane on a bumpy, fog-shrouded runway among the mountains. The small area reserved for the airport is surrounded by dense buildings. In addition, there are several volcanoes in the immediate vicinity of the airport. Only highly qualified pilots are allowed to land in such difficult conditions. During takeoff and landing, planes always sway a lot, and there is a rather large bump in the center of the runway, because of which the plane literally bounces, and then falls heavily back onto the landing gear. Under favorable weather conditions, it is not difficult for certified pilots to overcome these obstacles, and during prolonged tropical downpours, even world-class professionals consider a safe landing at Quito Airport to be a success. In addition to heavy rain showers, Volcanoes pose a serious threat to air transport, which regularly throw clouds of ash into the air and reduce visibility to a minimum. Quito Airport is one of the highest in the world. It is located at an altitude of 2,800 meters above sea level. Airstrip Mate Kane, in the Kingdom of Lesotho in southern Africa. The 400-meter-long strip ends with a cliff. The depth of the abyss is more than 600 meters. A rare aircraft manages to accelerate to climb before reaching the end of the runway. The design of the runway was carried out in such a way that after acceleration the aircraft made a free fall, which would allow it to gain sufficient flight speed. In 2009, for safety reasons, the airport was closed to local and international air traffic, but continues to be used for private flights by small aircraft, including charities and doctors to assist villagers located in the area. Small aircraft have enough available runway to reach the required speed without the element of free fall. Tenzing and Hillary Airport in Nepal. The airport, where the pilot has no room for error, was renamed in 2008 in honor of the first conquerors of Everest, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary. Mountain airports require the utmost skill and extreme precision from pilots. After a long maneuvering among the rocks, the ship must be steered sharply down to avoid a collision with the rock, which ends with a short runway that is only 537 meters long. The strip begins immediately after the cliff and is located under a slope. Takeoffs and landings are carried out at the airport exclusively according to the rules of visual flights, without the use of modern auxiliary navigation systems. The airport is located at an altitude of 2,860 meters above sea level. The beginning of the runway is located at the foot of the ridge, the height of which is 4,000 meters, and the end is on the edge of a 700-meter cliff. Madeira Airport, Portugal. Madeira's main airport was once even scarier than it is today. However, it was reconstructed after the disaster in 1977, which claimed the lives of 131 passengers. Today, 2 runways located on the cliff are almost 2 kilometers long. However, a significant part of the canvas is a flyover, supported by 180 pillars with a diameter of 3 meters and a height of up to 50 meters. Due to the mountains and the sea, the airport found itself in a zone of increased turbulence. Before landing, the aircraft must first be directed to the mountains, and almost at the very last moment, abruptly change the direction of flight and enter the runway, which is relatively short and landing is possible only in one direction. Narsarsuaq Airport, located in Greenland, is not only one of the most dangerous airports on the planet, but also a real historical landmark. It is located in the southern part of Greenland, among numerous fjords. The most beautiful landscapes outside the window do not give pilots a reason to relax. The area is famous for its high turbulence, which is why only well-trained pilots who know the area are allowed to fly here. Strong gusty winds cause great difficulties for pilots. Because of the mountainous terrain, air currents are unpredictable and constantly change direction. Kai Tak, Hong Kong. This airport closed 20 years ago, but its extreme conditions are still remembered by those who happen to land on it. I don't know how many times we almost touched the roofs before landing, one of the pilots recalls this airport. It was one of the last airports in the world where we really had to rely on basic aircraft control skills, and we were even frustrated when it closed, says an airliner captain who flew through the airport for 4 years before closing in 1998. The location of the airport was unusual. It was in a lowland surrounded by mountains and water, and later by residential areas. The runway ran into the mountains at Victoria Harbour and, due to the difficulties associated with landings on it, was nicknamed Kai Tak's Heart Attack at a distance of only 3.7 kilometers from the runway. The plane entered a 47-degree turn in 200 meters above the ground at a speed of about 300 kilometers per hour. Then it flew low over apartment buildings and bustling city streets. Only after that, his chassis touched the ground, and this was accompanied by a sigh of relief from both the crew and passengers. Today, pilots remember Kai Tak with nostalgia, saying that this airport was special. Paro Airport in Bhutan. The airport is considered one of the most difficult to land. The runway is located between the Himalayan peaks at an altitude of almost 2,500 meters above sea level. To land here, pilots have to make turns between the mountains, which is possible only during daylight hours. Due to the complexity of takeoffs and landings at this airport, only a few pilots are certified for these flights. Only local airline Druk Air can land here. She flies 2 Airbus A319s, but instead of the usual engines, they use engines from the A320, so that the planes do not crash into the mountain, which begins immediately at the far end of the runway. From here, only 230 kilometers to Everest, and it is clearly visible on the approach. The takeoff from the runway of this airport is no less extreme than the landing. Taking off from the ground, the plane immediately fell on the right wing, flying around the mountain, which is rapidly approaching, and it seems that the plane will not have time to gain altitude. Juancho Arrascan Airport, on the exotic island of Sabah in the Caribbean. The runway of this airport is the shortest in the world. The length is less than 400 meters. Landing here is not for the faint of heart. The pilot must direct the aircraft directly onto the rock, at the last moment before landing, make a sharp turn to the right in order to be on a hill, washed by the ocean on 3 sides. 3 types of aircraft are allowed to land at the airport, and jets are not among them. It is recognized by the World Association of Air Carriers as the most dangerous airport in the world. Sabah Island is one of the centers of ecotourism among all the islands of the Lesser Antilles archipelago. About 10,000 tourists from all over the world come here every year to visit the actually relic tropical forests. And you can get to Sabah only by air transport, since the coast of the island is more impregnable and does not have large ships mooring. Courchevel Airport, French Alps. Landing a plane on the 525-meter runway, located among the mountains, with a slope of 18.5%, is allowed only for pilots certified for this airport. The ski resort of Courchevel is located in the French Alps at an altitude of 2,000 meters. In cramped conditions, there was no better place for the airport than on the side of a mountain. The terrain is so humpbacked that even for such a small segment there was no straight section. The strip changes its slope in two places. They land here downhill, take off on the contrary, going down the slope. Another unique airport, Wellington, New Zealand. The extremely busy airport has only one runway, and even that is relatively short. The airport is located on the Isthmus of Rongotai. Due to strong gusts of wind from the Cook Strait, which lead to the so-called aerodynamic lift, landings and takeoffs here are often too harsh. Princess Juliana Airport, on the island of St. Martin. This is the main airport in the Caribbean. When landing, the planes fly directly over the heads of vacationers on Mayho Beach, at a height of 10 meters above them, since the runway is located close to this beach. This airport has a high landing difficulty, and in its history there have been 2 accidents. The first occurred on May 2, 1970. The weather at that time did not allow us to land the first time. The pilots decided to make a few more attempts, but, alas, the fuel ran out. The plane crashed into the sea near the beach. 22 out of 57 people died. The second accident occurred on December 21, 1972. A flight from Guadeloupe fell into the sea on approach to the runway, killing all the people on board. Takeoff at this airport is even more extreme than landing. The plane accelerates directly towards the mountain, and after taking off from the ground, the pilots pull the controls with all their might so that the plane has time to gain altitude bypassing the mountain. Gibraltar International Airport. Owned by the UK. Pilots landing here need to be good with brakes so as not to drown the plane in the strait that ends the runway. This is one of the most unique airports in the world. Its runway not only goes into the sea for several hundred meters, but also intersects with the existing highway. When planes take off or land, the movement of cars and pedestrians is stopped using traffic lights and barriers. Fortunately for residents, the airport serves no more than 30 flights a week. Winston Churchill Avenue, which crosses the runway, is a busy road as it connects the country to neighboring Spain. The reason for such a compact location of the transport infrastructure is the tiny size of Gibraltar itself, which occupies the territory of a small peninsula with an area of 6.5 sq km. Alexandros Papadiamantis, Skiathos Island, Greece. Landing at Skiathos Airport is far from ideal and can provide a thrill to even the most cold-blooded pilots. The relatively short and narrow runway ends in the ocean. And on the beach, vacationers who absolutely do not doubt the skill of the pilots, so the pilots have no right to disappoint them. However, if the pilot does not have time to slow down, the beachgoers will not know about it. Well, that's all for today. Thank you all for watching. If it was interesting, support the video with likes. Thank you for subscribing, and take a look at what else we have prepared for you.